Welcome to the Manders Mindset podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome back to Manders Mindset. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am so excited to be here with Kerie Logan today. And Kerie has helped people all over the globe live better lives and lives they love. She has been a human consciousness guide and empowerment strategist for over 20 years. And we are going to delve into what that is and how she got into that.
Thanks for having me here, Amanda.
Of course. So who would you say Kerie is at the core?
That's a really deep question. I would say, and this will sound so bizarre to so many people, but I am of God. I'm a part of God. And when you achieve the level of, I call 5D human consciousness, you realize that you're one with everything. Everyone listening is of God. Everyone is. Your mic, your headphones, the clothes you wear, everything in this universe is of God. And because I could say, yeah, I'm a mom, I'm an author, I'm this, I'm that, but really, what am I? I'm a ball of energy. I mean, that's the way I look at it, is I'm a ball of energy that has consciousness. And when this vessel fades and dies, which it will one day, my consciousness and those 21 grams of my spirit, my soul, if you want to call it, will leave this vessel and it will go up. And if I've completed everything I need to learn in my evolution of being a soul, then I will just be pure energy. I won't have another vessel. Or if I want, I can have a choice. I can go wherever I want, inside another one. And what do I want to learn? Because that's really why we're all here on earth, is we enrolled in a full-time school called life. That's why we're here. And life is full of lessons, and we're always going to keep learning lessons until we die.
The school of life. Now, have you always known that you were one with God? Or have you known that for a while?
No. It was really hard for me even to say that word. It was, because I grew up in a home where I was very confused, and I'm just going to be transparent here. I really didn't like religion at all, period. Because I would see my mom go into a Catholic church and bawl and cry and feel like a sinner. And I didn't like that approach. I saw my father, who was a Christian, read the Bible twice a day, attend all church functions, but then beat his wife and his kids. Complete hypocrite. So it really puzzled me. But the thing that I loved is when I started channeling and I asked, what am I channeling? I was told divine love. And when you think about, our creator is masculine and feminine. So divine love is the feminine and God is the masculine. And that was the way that I feel God, if you want to say, snuck into my heart. Because I loved the energy of the feminine, but I still had issues about the word God and the concept of God until 2003, when I had this big spiritual awakening. And I knew that was, it was a different tone of voice. And it was still the same energy and presence, but it was God. And it's strange to say that, but when I've spoken to other people that have had spiritual awakenings or have actually talked with God, have got messages from God and stuff, the difference. I even worked with a Catholic nun once that had PTSD. And at the end of the session, she was like, do you know God talks to you? And I was like, how do you know? She said, because everything you said and everything you were describing, I was thinking and seeing in my mind before you even said it. how do you do that? She said, it was like you were holding my hand, walking with me through the whole thing. And I said, I was, because when I sit in front of my mic, I'm praying. I connect to this. I connect to you, and whatever wants to flow through me to help this person, you can speak through me. And she was like, wow, this is amazing. But I really get that to achieve that sense, we have to take out the garbage. And what I mean by garbage is we got to let our baggage go. You got to stop being stuck in anger, hatred, bitterness, revenge, vanity, being materialistic, being power hungry, greedy. People are superficial. You take it, you use people. All those low dense, they call 3D levels of human consciousness. Or if you've ever read any of Paul Selig's book, they call it the small self. Really, everything that in Paul's channeling books that he does, and they talk about the small self, they're talking about 3D human consciousness. And they're telling all of us, we need to raise our vibration. We need to raise it up. And the only way to achieve this oneness is through consciousness. They all said it. And in some of his books, it even talks about the kingdom of heaven. And the kingdom of heaven is not a place. It's a state of being. It's a state of consciousness where you embody it. You walk the talk. You're a calm, peaceful, gentle, kind, loving person. And that's, I believe, what Jesus was trying to teach everybody, is to raise your level of conscious, be decent human beings, be kind to one another, stop the wars, stop the violence, stop starving your people and punishing your people and being cruel to one another, because that's not how we survive as a species. We've been destroying and killing each other for centuries and centuries. We need to stop that stuff, because now we're destroying the planet.
I get what you're saying. I'd love if we could backtrack before this awakening that you had, and you could take us down memory lane a little bit. Tell us about your upbringing, childhood, family dynamic, however deep you want to take that.
Yeah. So I was the middle child and had two brothers. And then when my parents divorced, my dad married another woman that had two other boys. So I was always in the middle. And I did not grow up in what I would call a 4D consciousness home. I grew up in a 3D. There was domestic violence. There was all kinds of abuse. It was a very toxic home environment that I grew up in. But I say they were my greatest teachers, because they taught me, when you go through great suffering, sometimes you learn, no, we do need to be kind to one another. We need to show compassion and patience and all of that. So it was a great, life teacher for me to realize that. So when I encounter someone or work with someone, I know what it's like to walk in their shoes. I really do. And I think what the beautiful gift it gave me is being non-judgmental, that I could sit with someone that's even narcissistic and be like, hey, it's okay. I know you're not born this way. You're created this way. We humans create you. And when some people say, well, no, they are created, then I tell them, well, then that's generational trauma. Because one of the ways they're created is out of trauma. And we can store 7 generations of trauma in our DNA.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So our stubbornness that is passed down from generation to generation was formed out of trauma, because they probably got, and I hope I can say this, they probably got the shit beaten out of them, really bad. And that was so traumatizing for them. So it made them to be, in your face, stubborn person to avoid getting beaten up again.
Now, you mentioned there was a lot of domestic violence in your home growing up. When did you move out of your family home? Did you go to college?
And that's an interesting dynamic there too, because I was in college and I was dating someone, and I was in what do you call it? A rock in a hard place is a better way to put it, where I was going to actually move back east and go live with the person that I was dating and stuff. It was very serious. And then ended up finding out, I quit my job. I didn't re-enroll in college. I was going to go back there, had everything packed. My mom rented out my room. And a week before I was supposed to leave, I found out that he actually was living with a woman back east. Yeah, I know. Look at your eyes. Yeah, was living with another woman because she contacted me. She found out about me. Yep. And told me everything. And I told my mom, I'm not going to, I can't move out. I can't. And she's like, but I already rented your room. And I had nowhere to go. And I was trying to scramble to find where to go. And when he found out that I found out, he literally moved out here and said, I'll take care of you. You can live with me. Because there was no way I was going to live with my father. And, that would have been a way worse situation. Wasn't going to do it. So I was living with someone that I didn't want to live with. And all my friends went off to college, like to Santa Barbara and Santa Cruz and all these places. I had nowhere to go to. And so that was a really difficult situation, for me, because I was going to sacrifice everything for this person. And then everything went to hell. Yeah, it was a little nuts.
Unfortunate. So how did you end up getting out of that situation?
How I ended up getting out of that one is... it's going to sound so bizarre. And, it's like I forgave him and everything. It took me a long time to forgive him and everything and rebuild trust. This is going to blow your mind. But I caught him cheating on me again with a woman that was older than his mother. But she was filthy rich. And so I kicked him out of our apartment that we had. And I said, go be with her. And I ended up moving down to Los Angeles for a while because I just had to get away from, it was in the Bay Area. I just had to get away and I wanted a fresh start. I wanted to see what life would be like down there. I was only there for maybe a year and a half. It wasn't my scene or my thing, but I had a friend down there and I just needed to get away. And so that's, it's kind of what I did.
Now, I'm curious, how long between this time period and when you had your spiritual awakening in 2003?
Well, I actually had a few, which is interesting. In 2012, I think that was my most major one that I had. I think when the spiritual awakening started was when I first saw, you've heard about Esther Hicks' law of attraction. Okay. So it was when I think the biggest one was when I saw her and there was maybe 100 people in the room. And when I saw her, I literally said to myself, I want to do that. I want to channel just like her. I do. And I set that intention. And that was when I was a hypnotherapist, just a few years into doing hypnotherapy. And I wrote myself kind of like a script of what I would say before I would work with any client. And I would connect with them and this and that. So I created my own mantra of the 30 minutes before I would start talking, I would pray. And these are the things I would say, to connect to them and all of that. And it got really fascinating when that started happening because more things happened. And in 2012, one day I woke up and I was told by up above, you're going to write this book and here's the table of contents and go to your computer and start typing. And I did. And the wisdom that was coming down was like amazing. I shouldn't have known the stuff because I have a friend, I'm still friends with her. She lives in the Sacramento area for UC Davis Medical Center. And I had her read the first 5 chapters and she said, how do you know this? You're not supposed to know this. I have a background in a social worker, and I'm doing my continued education right now, and everything you're talking about is in my book. How do you know this? You're not a social worker. You're not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or even a counselor. How do you know this? And I said, this is everything I downloaded, everything they told me to type. And she was like, that is wild. And when I got to chapter 2, understanding the power of our emotions, is when I learned about all of our thoughts and emotions do have a vibrational set point, because we are energetic beings having a human experience. And I was guided that science has backed this information. There's literally clinical information, and I was told, go online, find it. And when I did, I found Dr. David Hawkins' work, The Map of Human Consciousness. And I was so elated. I was just like, does this man know what he found? You know, this is like the Holy Grail, I thought. And when I tried to contact him, he died that same exact year. So a lot of people kind of wondered if I was channeling him in that moment, because he never went as far as, I would say, what I'm doing right now. He didn't go to this capacity where he didn't break it down into this is 3D, this is 4D, this is 5D. He didn't break any of that down. And what spoke to me said, we want you to start coaching people and working with people to align to the vibration of love, which vibrates at 500. Have everyone go up and align to that. And that is the very first step of 5D human consciousness. These are free on the website. So this is like something they had, this is channeled. Put this in, say this. So for the 5D, it's love, and it means unconditional love. And Amanda, how many of us have actually experienced unconditional love? Not many of us. You have, though, by a cat or a dog or a pet. Yes, because that animal is kind and playful and cheering and nurturing and supportive and caring and gentle. It has true happiness. It's cooperative. You have that magnetic relationship with it. It's you, and you accept it. It doesn't matter if you're sick or you've got a pimple on your face or you gain 20 pounds. That animal's still going to love you unconditionally. It's us humans that are judgmental and harsh and cruel, and that animal truly appreciates you because you're taking care of it. That's the very first step of 5D human consciousness. So I started coaching people to find out where their energetic set point is, whether it's fear, anger, anxiety, depression, where they're stuck, and shift their perspective. Just walk them up the steps and shift their perspective and get them aligned to love, to where they feel complete. They have like this self-realization, and it's like a transformation that these people are having. And that's why they call it alchemy. You're going from the lower to the higher, and you feel the difference. You can literally feel the difference. I mean, you know how we see those commercials where people are trying to fake being happy, but inside they're really dark and gloomy. But when you are genuinely happy, everyone sees it. You're magnetic. And when we fall in love, they say you have a glow about you. You're glowing. When you're pregnant, you're so full of joy and happiness. That's a vibration of 540. You're glowing. That baby glow is the joy. It's the gratitude. You have something beautiful, a deep appreciation for this vessel that's growing inside of you. That's a part of you.
Now, can you explain the 3D, the 4D, and the 5D at a really basic level?
Yep. So a basic level where a lot of people are stuck at is 100, which is fear. It's where they're restless, they're irritable, they have anxiety, they can be withdrawn, their nervousness, they're guarded, hypervigilant, suspicious, they're worrywart, they're wishy-washy, fear failure, they second guess themselves often, Their mind stews often. Like if you can't sleep at night and your mind's stewing, that's because you're stuck in that vibrational set point. And then there's often this inability to trust anyone. Inability. All right. And so a good way to describe that is, let's say you dated someone when you were really young and you got so heartbroken and that relationship devastated you. And you keep noticing that you're attracting a narcissistic or toxic person over and over again. You will be stuck in that area where you're fearful and second guessing, is that person really right for me? But at the same time, you're not realizing that all these people you're dating are your teachers, because they're trying to teach you to set healthy boundaries. They're trying to teach you to accept yourself and have confidence. They're wanting to teach you that you deserve a lot more. Honestly, you deserve a lot more. And so the best way to describe this is you're stuck in dense energy where you are feeling shame, remorse, despair, hopelessness, depression. The world is bleak. You could be angry. Where the narcissist lives is at 175, where they are self-righteous. They're cold. They're scorekeepers. They're defensive. They're detached, inflated ego. They
And now,
the truth. That's 3D right there. And they're all about prestige. They're power hungry. You know, they two-faced gossip is there. A bully is there. People that are control freaks, judgmental, black and white thinking. It's all there. And so the first step into 4D human consciousness, and this is what I call adulting, is courage. That's the very first step. The courage to do something differently. And we call those people heroes. We call them warriors. They were afraid of this and that, but no, I need to do the right thing. I need to do the right thing. And so they jump up to courage, and that builds, it's a healthy sense of pride. It's a not destructive sense of pride. It's a healthy sense of pride. And these people are confident. They're supportive. They give you a sense of security. You feel safe around them. They are flexible and feasible. They are goal-oriented, and they're determined. They're focused. And then 250, and I can give a clear example of this. It's where you have this inner confidence. You're adaptable. You're grounded, centered, balanced. You're non-judgmental. You're a problem solver. So when someone is mad or frustrated, even like in parenting, what do we tell the child to do? Calm down. Take a time out. Calm down. And what you're telling that kid to do is to get grounded, balanced, and centered again. When someone is trying to take a test and they feel extreme anxiety, what do they need to do? Calm down. Get grounded, balanced, and centered. Because you're going to flunk the test if you're totally second guessing yourself and feeling anxiety. The choices you make are not going to be good choices. They're going to be choices made out of fear and out of anxiety. So anyone that, let's say, plays music or performs on a stage or even does public speaking, they're all told the same thing. You got to get grounded. You got to get balanced. You got to clear your mind so you can speak and perform and do what you need to do without, I don't want to say this in a negative way, without making a fool out of yourself. Yeah. And also when we screw up and we make a mistake, I don't call them a mistake. I call them an error in judgment. But when you make that error in judgment, what does everyone say? Please forgive me. I made a mistake. I messed up. I screwed up. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. You know, we ask for forgiveness, and that is part of 4D human consciousness. You know, we ask for people to show us kindness, to show us patience, to show us, you know, that we matter. And so when you master these things where you're non-judgmental to anyone and everyone, there's more peace on earth. I mean, think about it. If everybody mastered 4D human consciousness, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now in the world. There'd be more cooperation instead of separation or, oh, I'm going to get whatever I can. Yeah, I already have billions of dollars, but I still want billions and trillions more. You see the difference? It's like, why aren't you using that money for good? Why aren't you feeding, the homeless people or donating your money or contributing to society? I mean, why? Who's getting rich? Whose pockets are you lining?
Do you have tips for people to raise their vibration from 3D to the 4D?
Yes. So this is something that's free on the website. So if you go to mastertheupperrooms.com and you click on free stuff, there's a section of free images, free audio, free ebooks, but this is one that looks kind of like this. It's about creating balance within your life. So there's wellness and mental health. That means your physical health, your mental health, your personal growth, your spiritual growth. Then there's financial abundance and prosperity, your financial income, your money management. There's savings and investments. Then there's your life purpose category, like career and business, your hobbies. Then there's connections and relationships with people, your friends, your family, your relationship with yourself, your self-care. And then there's creative flow, which is like fun, play, adventure, travel, weekend getaways. So here's a good example. A lot of people that are great at financial abundance and prosperity, money management, some of them are just scraping by, and they don't know how to have fun. They're workaholics. They don't play. They don't do the weekend getaways. They don't go on travel. It literally takes them a week to unwind, to actually enjoy a vacation. And so it's letting them see this is where you're lacking. You're really stuck because they're stuck in that mindset of, no, I need more, I need more, I need more. But they're really miserable. And I've interviewed people that were millionaires and decided, I'm not happy. I don't like my job. I don't like my life. I don't like where I'm going. And they left. They left the corporate world. And they started doing something that they really loved and enjoyed. It's like, what's going to feed your soul? I worked with one woman that was extremely codependent, and where she lacked was in relationships with people. She had a successful career. She was an interior designer. So that was like aligned with her hobbies. It was playful. It was fun. She loved it. But she liked finding lost puppies. She felt validated by these men she was trying to fix. And I had to tell her, you can't fix these guys. They're taking advantage of you. They're really taking advantage of you. You got to raise your self-worth, your self-esteem.
That makes a lot of sense. Even like we see famous people all the time that have all these money, even like Robin Williams, I always think of, and he didn't have the happiness. It doesn't necessarily guarantee you will.
No, it doesn't guarantee. And that's the real hard part, is a lot of us are, I'd say, misled in the beginning. We're told, no, you have to do this to survive. And that's the key thing, survive. You have to do this, you have to do that. And this will bring you happiness. And you believe what they say and you try to go down that path, but then you realize, no, it's not bringing me happiness. It's not fulfilling my life. You could hate your boss. You could hate what you're doing. And then you're miserable and you end up on antidepressants because you're more focused on the paycheck than finding a job that might pay you less, but you'll pay less taxes and you'll be happier. And it's looking at it as, what's a side niche that maybe I could do to bring extra money? It could be podcasting. It could be making lavender soaps, or, I look at the lavender stuff. It could make lavender bath salts, and you could be really good at that. And that can be your extra side job that you get extra money in. Like my son, He had a PSW, personal support worker. He was an Uber driver, and he loved doing it because he got to meet new people all the time. He was very social. And I'm like, hey, that's your thing. I could never do that. I'd be like, get in, shut up. We're going to the next location. You know? Because some of the stories he'd tell me, some of the people he'd meet, I was like, oh my gosh, that's just wild. But yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable having a stranger get in my car and I'm going to drive you somewhere. But him, no problem. Me as a woman, I wouldn't feel safe or comfortable doing that.
Now, can you explain at a basic level what you do as a human conscious guide and how you help people with that?
So I really listen to what they're saying. That's the most important thing because everybody, when they come to see me, they have a story. All right. And that story is keeping them stuck. Think about it as it's stuck in their energy. And so what I do is I figure out where they're stuck and then how to shift them, how to bring them up to shift their perspective. So I'll give you a good example. I did a podcast about this where a friend of mine that I've known for 25 years, and I used to be his boss because I used to be in the wine industry, of all things, ended up being in the wine industry. And he was telling me he was really stuck. And so he took me out to lunch and he was talking about his recent second divorce and all the things that he discovered about his ex-wife. His ex-wife got into drugs and he didn't know. She hid it from years. And actually, she was even selling her body to get drugs, which scared him, which was so shocking. All his family was like, how could you attract someone like that? How could you be with someone like that? And I told him, well, you fell into a trauma bonding relationship. And I said, and you got to look it up because you had the white knight syndrome. And he's like, what do you mean by that? I said, well, you were in the salvation attitude that I'm going to save you. I'm going to help you. And let's be honest, she didn't want your help, did she? He said, no, she didn't. She's still doing drugs, still doing that stuff. And he feels so much guilt, so much remorse. He feels inadequate. He feels like a victim. And that vibrates at 30. And in that section is salvation attitude. But at the same time, when he was talking to me, he told me that, Kerie, I could have went down the path of doing drugs or alcohol or gambling, any of that, even porn addiction, but I didn't. I actually started praying every single day. And now I walk with God every day. That was my saving grace. It saved my sanity. And I am so blessed I found God. And I said, well, do you realize she gave you a gift? And it's a priceless gift. Do you realize the gift she gave you? Because she's your teacher. Do you realize what that is? Because he still loved her. He loved her unconditionally. He wanted to save her, but he knew she didn't want to be saved. And I said, the gift she gave you was she brought you closer to God. Because before, God was like you ordering takeout. Every once in a while, I'll call upon God. But no, she gave you that gift. And he was like, you're right. So I springboarded him all the way up to reasoning, emotional intelligence, that's 400, to have wisdom and to realize that, yes, I have affection for her still. I have gratitude towards God, but yes, she did give me a gift. And then I backslid him, which is 350 is acceptance. And can you forgive her for this? Because she's teaching you a super hard lesson. And what the lesson she's really teaching you is you deserve more. You need to love yourself. The next person you go out and meet, you need to start asking the right questions. And I said, I bet you when you first met her, you were arguing about your exes. Oh, my ex did this. My ex did that. And you probably thought, oh, well, we'll be better together. We know how it was. We'll be better together, as a couple. And I said, but neither of you healed, right? He said, yes, neither of us healed. So both of you were damaged goods, and you thought, okay, well, both of us damaged goods will heal one another. No, you should have healed before you entered any relationship, and you didn't. And she lied to you. She hid this drug addiction from you for years. How could you have been so in the dark? Well, I thought things were funny, but, I kind of let things slide. I said, yeah, the red flags probably were all over the place, but you dismissed it. You dismissed it. Yeah. And so I gave him all this. I really brought him up and I said, instead of praying to God saying, help me with my guilt, help me with my remorse, you should literally be praying and saying, thank you. I realize she is my teacher and she brought me closer to you. And so my prayer is that one day she'll find her way, because I still love her and I want her to have a good life if she allows herself to have that. Really come from that place of pure compassion for this woman, because her life is miserable. And it's like that saying, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So if you have anyone in your family, anyone you know that is homeless or struggling with drugs and all of that's their path. And they're your teacher. And you can love them, but not like them. Because what you don't like is their behavior. You don't like how they're self-destructive. They're self-sabotaging. You don't like how they talk to you, but you can still love them. I mean, their parents can say, there's some of their kids are easier to love than others. You still love them. You want the best for them. And that's unconditional love. But the ones that won't, the ones that kick you out of your house, the ones that want you to grovel and beg for forgiveness, that want to have you apologize first, that's someone stuck in 3D human consciousness. That's not love. That's conditional love.
Would you say all teachers, regardless of...
Everybody is a teacher and a student. Everybody is.
Okay.
And all our answers lie within us because it's our memories. So if you and I, Amanda, went on a picnic, my view of a picnic is, oh, it was a beautiful day. It was fantastic. And your view of the picnic was, oh, it sucked. I had ants crawling on me. I didn't like it at all. Two different mindsets, same exact experience. And so all our stories are within us, because when you talk, so have you ever had a situation where you got along great with someone, but as soon as you talked, let's say right now, politics, and that person immediately gets defensive, black and white thinking, really rigid, really arrogant and angry. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. 5 years ago, I could talk about politics with you and we were still friends. But now, can I even talk politics with you? No, I can't, because you're so angry. You're so rigid in your way of thinking. And even my friend, that friend that I was talking about, when he shared with me, yeah, I voted for our president right now, I looked at him and I said, why did you do that? And he said, well, because he has Christian values. And I started laughing and I said, well, is what he's doing Christian values? I don't think so. And he's like, no, he's not doing what's Christian values. And I said, okay, so you then were blindsided. You were gaslighted. And there was all these, yes, he may follow through on some of these promises, but a lot of the things that are happening, no, I don't think they're Christian values at all. Because where's the cooperation? Where's the let's love one another? Let's support everyone as a whole. Where is that? No, now you're deporting people right and left, just because you have a tattoo that they don't like. Oh, I'm going to put you in a prison. That's insanity.
Would you say that even people who don't show up with Christian values are teachers as well?
Oh, everybody is. Everyone is, because we always have a moment where we're teaching something. I mean, even our children can teach us patience. And then we can teach our children patience back. It's an exchange, teacher, student. My son has taught me things about my phone that I was like, oh my God, I didn't know it did that. And then there's things we teach our kids, and it goes back and forth, teacher, student.
I don't know if you remember like before versus now. So if you don't, it's okay. But do you remember like the difference before your spiritual awakening, like your first one to now?
Yes. Yeah. Because I could see where when I was younger, I was stuck in some areas of 3D human consciousness. I could clearly see that. And when I started really mastering, I'd say doing work on myself and getting rid of the trauma and shifting my perspective, because I've always been about the inner beauty is more important to me than the outer beauty. So when I was in high school, I was reading, self-help books. I was reading books about, channeling. I was reading the creative visualization, reading books by Catherine Ponder, the dynamic laws of healing. The first book I remember was Healing the Shame That Binds You. I think it was by Bradshaw was the last name. And Codependency No More. I was really trying. The Dance of Anger is a fantastic book, because I realized the game that my dad would play is it's like a triangle. There's always someone that's the rescuer, the villain, the one that's being abused. And so it kind of has this cycle that plays. And my dad would do that all the time, and it would just drive me nuts. But that book actually taught me a lot about how to set healthy boundaries and to speak my truth with my dad, because it was rather dysfunctional, because he would guilt trip me, so much guilt trip, and then try to manipulate me. And it was all those games I call that are down in 3D human consciousness. He wouldn't accept responsibility for his behaviors. He would always blame shift. Oh, it's that person's fault or that person's fault. And it's like, can't you accept responsibility for your part? Why are you always playing the victim? You're not the victim. And it's that mindset, the whole thing about the mindset there. And so, yes, it took me a lot to get myself up higher, because there was a lot I had to forgive. A lot. And I know people will say, oh, there's just some things I can't forgive. I can't forgive. I won't forgive. But I will tell you this. When you do, your whole life changes. That person is unhooked completely. And I'll give a good example. When my older brother passed away and I flew to California to help go through his stuff, pack things up, take some to Goodwill, all that, my dad was there. And I hadn't seen the man in probably like 10 years. When he heard that our older brother died, this is going to sound so horrible. He said, I don't care what they do with his body or the ashes. They can throw it in a dumpster with everybody else. His exact words. It was so cold and harsh. My younger brother was like, we're not going to let him do that to him. And so we did. My younger brother was like, no, we're going to cremate him. I will pay to have him cremated. And we're going to do this. Try to talk some sense into my dad. And so when I saw him there, I was like, hey, how you doing? It's nice to see you again. Okay, what are we going to do today? And I was very happy and level-headed. And I said, I'm really sorry Rob passed, but, let's get this done in the time frame that we have, because I fly out, this and that. And when I walked away, my dad looked over at my brother and said, what's wrong with her? Is she on drugs? She's happy. She should be mad at me, wanting to fight with me and argue with me. And when he told me that, I was like, I am so free of this man. That was my validation and confirmation that I was unhooked. Because if I wasn't, I would have immediately been like, how dare you? And this and that, and want to fight. And I realized he's not worth it. He is totally not worth my time and energy, or even, I love the man, but I don't like him. And it's really hard. A lot of people, if they went through what I did, would say, no, how can you possibly still love that man? But when you set yourself free, really set yourself free, it's amazing. And how I do it is I use the Ho'oponopono Ono technique, where I say, I am sorry, please forgive me, I love you and thank you. And so how I did it was I said, I'm sorry, I couldn't be the daughter you wanted me to be or expected me to be. I'm much bigger than that. And I am sorry that you feel threatened by an empowered woman who speaks her mind and sets healthy boundaries and doesn't take your crap. I'm sorry that I made you mad. I'm sorry that I disappointed you. And I ask you to please forgive me. And I love you because you're my father. Yes, you created me, and I'm loving me at the same time. And I thank you for this opportunity to allow me to have this closure with you, because it's going to set me free, and you're no longer going to be able to sink your hooks into me. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I forgive you and all the hurtful, hateful memories that have been stored within me. And I bless them all. I forgive myself for the misconceptions I have. And I forgive all the energy around that. And I'm going to let it go. And so I always like at the end to put it in a nice pink bag with a ribbon on it. And I say, God or divine love, take this. You know exactly what to do with this. Take it, purify it, restore it, just clear all the energy. It's yours. Here you go. And I just let it go. And when you've done it right is when you see that person again, just like I did, and you're not triggered. It doesn't faze you. You're not thinking of all the nasty things they did to you or said to you or how they treated you. You're so neutral. It's like you're flatline. It's so cool, Amanda. I got to tell you, that was the greatest gift I ever gave myself. And it has a ripple effect, as you know.
Now, did you say this to your father? Oh, just...
Nope. I said it in my mind, because you think about it, we're energetic beings. It's all energy. It's all energy. And if I am focused and I have a pure intention, and it is not an intention to hurt or harm them, he will feel it. They've done actual scientific studies where I send thoughts to you and you can feel it. Yeah. It's pretty fascinating. So you don't have to see the person. Could be dead. You don't have to see the person or be around the person. You could be in your home, sitting in your chair, just like we are now, and do it. Just do it and see what happens. But you have to be humble and genuine and sincere about it. You can't fake this stuff.
Because there's an energy about it.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Well, even if like you and I got in an argument and I said, well, I love you, Amanda. Do you feel it? No, you're going to be like, you don't love me in this moment. You're mad at me. But if I said it in a moment where we're having intimacy, eye contact and all of that, and I said, I love you, Amanda, you'd be like, oh, I feel that. Thank you, Kerie. You know the difference.
About how long have you been doing this process for forgiveness? A while?
Yes, I've been doing it. I do it whenever it shows up. So if I get triggered by anything, I go within, because that's where all the answers lie. And I go within and I'll ask myself, hey, why did I get triggered by this? Who does this remind me of? Whose voice maybe is this? Like, so if you hear a voice of, oh, you're a loser, you suck, go within and ask yourself, whose voice is that? Is that my voice, or is that the voice of my mom, my dad? Oh, my old teacher, a friend of mine, an old roommate. Whose voice is that? And then you go, oh, okay. So is there a memory attached to that? And then your mind, it will literally bubble it to the surface. Oh, that argument we got in where, this. So then you just forgive yourself for that misperception. You forgive yourself, and the person. And now here's the key thing I want to point out. And someone saw this was fascinating. Okay. Every day there are seeds blowing in the wind. And when you encounter someone and they say something that hurts your feelings, we are the ones that have a choice to grab that seed and water it, or to let the seed blow on by. So a good example is my son. There's a family member that he is struggling with, and that person triggers him all the time because they're rather arrogant. And he's like, I can't stand being around them. They just drive me nuts. And I said, but here's the problem. When they say something that triggers you, you're grabbing a hold of that seed and you water it with your thoughts because you're going, they drive me nuts. They piss me off. I can't stand that person. How dare they say that to me? And I say, what you need to do is, instead of grabbing that seed and watering it with your thoughts and letting it grow roots and fester inside your head, you need to let it blow on by, because it's their stuff, not yours. It's their issues. It's their anger. It's their disappointment. They're wanting to piss you off because that's their end goal. They achieve the goal. So you got to look at it is, okay, I know what this person does. I know how they are. I can't change them. When I'm around them, I need to stay grounded, balanced, and centered. And when they say something that's mean and cruel, I have a choice. I don't have to react. I can respond. And part of responding is I don't have to say anything. I could walk away. I could redirect myself and say, hey, I forgot about this, and completely leave the room. I could step outside for a breath of fresh air. I don't have to engage with this person.
I like that analogy with the seed and it like growing or just letting it blow.
Yeah, because then it becomes a story. You attach it to that story. Oh, the last time I saw them, they did this. That's their story, with all those emotions of anger that they were feeding and watering and nurturing unintentionally and unconsciously. So that's why I want people not to beat themselves up. Don't be cruel to yourself. Realize it's an error in judgment. And you need to let it go. You need to pull those weeds out of your mind, to let that garbage go. Plant seeds of change, and that's the hard part is when I started to change. Oh, my family hated it. My dad hated it because now I was setting healthy boundaries. I was speaking my truth, and it made him so mad. He even disinherited me. I'm like, fine, I don't want your money. And it was me honoring me and loving me because he was going to suck the life out of me eventually.
I'm curious. You mentioned that you don't think of things as mistakes and you refer to them as errors in judgment. When did you have this shift? I'm sure you at some point thought of things as mistakes, maybe even in your upbringing.
So when I was younger, I would, like most people, beat myself up and feel like a failure. I feel stupid sometimes. Like, why did I do that? When I look back at myself, I realize that a lot of times it was the choices that I made stuck in 3D human consciousness, because it was a sporadic, quick choice. And I wasn't grounded and centered. I was coming from a place of fear. I wasn't coming from a place where I could really solve the problem and slow down. I was quick. It's like I wanted to fix it right away, but then I could cause even more damage. And so I really had to learn to give myself grace and to realize that I need to not be so harsh on myself, because we say things to ourselves, Amanda, that we would never say to someone we love. We'd never say those things to our child. We never say it to our best friend. But how many times do we tell ourselves, oh, you're stupid, you're ugly, you're incompetent. Oh, that person's not going to like you. Oh, you're not good enough for that person. All these harsh comments we say, and we got to stop. We literally got to stop. I remember working with a school teacher, and she said that their policy is if you say one negative thing to a child, you have to back it by saying 10 positive things, because those kids internalize the negative. They don't have the coping skills as us as adults, so they internalize it.
Yeah.
And then just like that, it's a seed. They take that seed, that negative comment, and they water it and they water it and they water it. And then they wonder, why do I feel like I'm not good enough? Why do I feel like I don't matter? I'm unimportant. I'm insignificant.
I love how you mentioned about the child, even if it wasn't our own child. So many things we say to ourselves, we wouldn't say to anybody's kid.
No, it wouldn't. And so it took me a lot of going within and showing myself compassion, showing myself patience, showing myself grace, and really being kind to me. Because when all of us, let's say, are going through a dark time or a hard time, we have to show ourselves these things. Because when we don't, what do? We find an outside source of comfort, which is drinking, sex, gambling, porn. It's all a distraction. It's all a distraction. And all of those addictive behaviors, it literally is at 75, vibrates. Addictive behaviors is 75. And it doesn't serve you. It's just hurting you. Because there's nothing wrong with having a few beers. And even with people that come to me for weight loss, I tell them, well, thin people eat cookies too. They eat pizza also. They just don't do it every day. Or if they eat a pizza, they eat a couple of slices. They don't eat the whole pizza. They don't eat the whole bag of cookies or the whole bag of chips. And I tell them, a lot of times people are doing unconscious eating because you can tell yourself, this is the last chip I'm going to eat. And then before you know it, your hand's in the bag and you're stuffing some more in your mouth. And then what do? You rationalize it. You try to justify it. Oh, well, maybe I was really hungry. Or, oh, okay, this is the last one. There's games we sometimes play with ourselves. That's why people are always talking about, we need to be more mindful. We need to be more self-aware instead of walking around blindly, through life.
How do people become more self-aware?
When you catch yourself in something that is holding you back, instead of beating yourself up, say thank you, because that you're now no longer on automatic pilot. It's brought into your awareness. So when someone gives you, let's say, constructive criticism, you really should be thanking them because they can see things that you can't. And so when you do have those, I call them aha moments, show gratitude. Don't beat yourself and be like, well, that was stupid. You're so stupid for doing that. Be like, no, thank you. I need to be more mindful about this. So when it came to eating, I would tell people, be mindful when you eat. Put your fork down after every single bite. Maybe count your chews. Savor the meal. It's not a race. You don't need to shove it all down in 10 minutes. Take a sip of water. Have a conversation at the table. Enjoy the meal instead of, I'm just going to eat super fast and then you're done in 5 minutes. Because it takes literally 20 minutes for your stomach and your brain to realize that I'm full. And by the time it sinks, you're like, I'm stuffed. I'm just gorged. Because you were eating so fast, you weren't mindful. Like when you go grocery shopping, they always say the worst time to go grocery shopping is when you're hungry. It's true. You end up buying more than you would if you were totally satisfied and not hungry. So be mindful. When like a lot of times when I deal with people that are shopaholics, I tell them, stop and ask yourself, do I really need this? Like especially exercise equipment. Am I going to hang my clothes on this or am I really going to do this? And I tell them, okay, so if you really want to get fit, try walking outside first. Create that habit first of being consistent. Don't go out and buy an expensive exercise equipment that's just going to get dust and hang your clothes on it, because you never were walking on it first. You didn't create that habit, that behavior first before you started doing it. You thought, oh, this is a great idea, but did you go outside for the first 2 weeks or a month exercising? Did you do an exercise video? Were you working out, or was it just a great idea? Because reality is different than the idea.
Reality is different than the idea.
Like, for example, my son's father, he thought it would be great to have a child together, great to raise a child together. But when the reality came and the kid was here, he sucked at parenting. There was times he didn't even want to be a parent. He was just like, this is way too much. I can't handle this. And I was like, well, the reality is way different than the idea.
I like how you mentioned an aha moment and you refer to it as that. I often ask my guests the biggest aha that they've had. So I'm curious what yours is.
The biggest aha that I had was that I was talking to God for years and how it slipped its way around me by going off of divine love, divine love. That was the biggest aha. And I thought it was beautiful. I really thought it was beautiful because I had such a hard time saying God, such a hard time because of what I witnessed and what I experienced growing up, and hearing people say, God is judgmental and God is angry and this and that. And in my mind and in my heart, I was like, no, that's not my God. That's not my God at all. Mine is sweet and kind and compassionate and loving and giving and supportive. It's the most beautiful thing. It's not this. It's not a destructive one, an evil one. I don't believe that at all, period. And so, it's like, oh, you're going to burn in hell for your sins. It's like, really? Really? And that's why I ended up realizing that all of us here on earth, it can be heaven on earth or it can be hell. The choice is ours, because all of these thoughts and emotions and our feelings that are vibrating around us are there for us right now. 24/7. 24/7 around so many areas of our life, our wellness, our money, our friends, all of this, the different areas of our life. It's always available for us. And we do fluctuate throughout our day. When I get irritated or pissed off, I realize, hey, I don't like feeling like this. I need to feel better. What can I do to get myself back up here? I don't take things personal anymore. I don't attach to outcomes. And when I went through, I call the dark night of the soul, to keep my sanity, I created this mantra. And the mantra was, this is only temporary. This is only temporary. And when I felt that sense of relief that I was going out of the dark place and up to the light and just feeling some relief, then I would say, this is only temporary and only something good will come from this. I don't know what it is, but something good is going to come from this, and I will realize it later on. And it's having that attitude that this too shall pass. It is what it is. I don't know what it is or why this is happening. Stuff like this happens, but I'm not going to attach to it. I'm going to see what's going to unfold. I'm not going to have expectations. I'm not going to set conditions or anything. I'm really going to have a lot of surrender and grace around it, because sometimes stuff does happen and we don't know why. But then later on, we know exactly why that happened, because sometimes great chaos creates great change. Sometimes we have to go through hell to realize that I need to stop doing this. I need to stop thinking this way or acting this way or hanging out with these people or doing this or doing that. I need to set healthy boundaries. I need to speak my truth. I need to stop trying to rescue stray puppies that are binge drinkers and lie to me and cheat on me all the time, like that codependent woman. I need to love me. I need to honor me. I need to believe me and respect me. And I need to become what I want to attract. If I want a kind, gentle, loving, patient, good man, I need to embody that. I need to become that.
That's so beautiful, Kerie. I love that. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I hope all of this makes sense to your listeners. I know it can seem a little deep, and some people have been like, oh, is this woo stuff? And no, it's not. It's not stuff. I mean, we always have a choice in everything that we do, every moment of the day.
That is so true. It makes sense. It does. It's deep, but it makes sense. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
No.
So he hosts a podcast. He's an author, motivational speaker. He ends his podcast with 2 segments, and I liked them and I stole them. So I end mine with the same segments, but I give him credit. First segment is the many sides to us, and there's 5 questions, and they need to be answered in 1 word each. What is 1 word someone who is meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
Someone just said it recently, and it just...
What is 1 word that someone who knows you extremely well would use to describe you as?
Fascinating.
What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Complex.
What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you as?
Complex.
What is 1 word you're trying to embody right now?
Well, it's not trying. I already have. It's oneness.
Second segment is the final 5, and these can be answered in a sentence. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
You can love them. My uncle actually told me this when I was in my 20s, and he was talking about his father. He said, you can love them and not like them. That was the best advice anyone ever said. And I was like, that's true. Because all kids want to love their parents, but I could not stand my dad. I didn't like him at all. And I was like, thank you, because there's a part of us where we think, like how it says the 10 commandments, you should honor and, respect your father. But when you have someone that does the things that mine did, it's like, how can I honor you when you don't even honor me? How? Yeah. So I answered that one. Yeah.
What is the worst advice you've received?
It was probably something in my childhood where I was dared to do something and then I got hurt. Oh, I know what it was. Learning how to ride a bike. My brother said, drive it down the driveway and you'll be able to stop before the garage door. You'll be able to, and you could just coast down the bike. You'll see and feel how it was. Well, I wasn't able to hit the brakes in time, and my little female part hit the end of the bike, and it was so painful. So that was very bad advice. And it didn't teach me how to ride a bike.
What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
Growing up, I was really told to respect your elders. And there was some elders that I met that were very mean and very harsh. And it was hard for me to respect those people when they didn't show mutual respect back, when they treated me as less of a person. And so that's why growing up, I don't care if you're the president of the United States or you're a celebrity or a superstar or whatever. At the end of the day, you're just like me. You're a human being. Yeah, you might have achieved more than me or had more great experience or wealth and stuff. That doesn't mean you are better than me or you're above me or below me, we're equals. And that was the biggest thing I had to realize is everyone is equal and everyone deserves the same. That's equality. Everyone deserves kindness and all of that. It doesn't matter what your status is, how many followers you have or likes or this and that. It doesn't matter.
If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
That everyone learned how to master their different levels of human consciousness. That would be it, because there would be no war, homelessness, poverty, any of that. The world would be a completely different place. It would be beautiful.
If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? I want to know why.
I would say to follow the 4D human consciousness, your goal in life, because that is adulting. It really is. You can't raise a child properly coming from a 3D mindset. You really have to be kind, compassionate, upbeat, forgiving, accepting. You have to be vulnerable. I think that would be a law I would want, that they teach this in schools, because they're not teaching this in school. And I would love it if kids learned how to be good, decent human beings. And when they're struggling with something, be gentle with them and say, hey, how can we problem solve? I know you're mad at so-and-so. Well, can you forgive them? I know you love that person. They're your best friend. They made an error in judgment. Can you forgive them? Or are you going to be miserable and hate them for the rest of your life? And even if you don't want to be around them anymore, can you speak your truth and say, hey, I need to end this relationship because it's unhealthy and destructive. I still care about you. I want the best for you in life, but I can't be friends with you right now. Do you have the courage to do that? I would love to see this be taught in schools, because if you teach it at such a young age, imagine how they're going to be when they do become adults.
That makes sense. Thank you so much, Kerie. I really appreciate you
Thank you.
speaking with me. And I do just like to give it back to the guest. Any final words of wisdom you want to leave the listeners with?
In your journey of discovering your authentic self, show yourself the 4D skills of kindness, patience, cooperation. Don't beat yourself up. Really learn to trust your choices that you're making. And I would say that would be the greatest gift you could give yourself as well as others. And when someone screws up and you're mad at them, remember to not plant that seed and fester over it at night, stewing. Oh, they did this, they did that. No, really, just try to clear it, let it go, and then go back to it the next day. Because then you're not so triggered or activated anymore. You're at baseline. You're calm. You're neutral. That's when you can think about it. I mean, we're literally, when we get in an argument or a fight, a lot of times we realize, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that.
That's so true. Well, thanks, Kerie. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Manders Mindset. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.